Hi, everyone, and welcome to this special webinar on opportunities in Portugal. Thank you to everyone from across the globe attending this event. As many of you know, we as Trip Villas started Holiday Home Times in 2012 to assist both our existing holiday home owners and also prospective holiday home buyers who are coming to us for advice and guidance on how to invest and profit from this industry. It's very satisfying for me to know that 8 years after founding Holiday Home Times, we have more than 500,000 holiday home owners who have either entered the industry or bought a holiday home because of the advice that Holiday Home Times has provided them. With this, I'd like to welcome our guests this time, Mr. Daryl Pereira and Felipe Esbio, to this webinar. Welcome, Daryl. Welcome, Felipe.
Thank you.
Hi. Thank you.
Hi.
Thank you.
I will do some short introductions because both Daryl and Philippe are very accomplished people. I will start with you, Daryl. Daryl Pereira founded the Rera Group in 1991 and over the years has diversified into various industries with a special focus on tourism, agriculture, real estate, and other emerging technologies. He's originally from Goa and lives in Lisbon. Daryl is also the vice president of the Indo-Portuguese Business Chamber. Welcome, Daryl, and thank you for taking the time to share your expertise and experience with our subscribers from across the globe.
Thank you. Hi.
Philippe. Philippe is an experienced lawyer. He has over 18 years of experience in Portuguese immigration law and has been helping clients navigate the Golden Visa process since its inception in 2012. So, Philippe, thank you for taking the time. And, we pride ourselves on having the best legal advice for our subscribers, as, this is a life-changing and most important decision for any investor, combining both, of course, his financial health as well as the health of his family and relationships, because you could get into significant trouble with your spouse if something went wrong with this process. So we're very happy to have you here to guide our subscribers on this entire process. Um, just for the benefit of everyone, we have got some prepared remarks. Daryl has a presentation sharing a little bit about Portugal, his experience, what are the interesting sectors to look at, etc. And then we will have Philippe come in and talk specifically about the Golden Visa program. And then we will also take some question answers and questions from the audience. I know there are some people who are attending on YouTube and some are attending on Facebook. So on both the platforms, you can use the comments section to ask your questions, etc. And I will collate the questions and take these questions and pose them to Philippe or Daryl, whoever is this thing. So Daryl, with that, we'll give you the field, and myself and Philippe will come back a little later. Yeah.
Yep.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, in whichever part of the world you are in. Let me present a little bit about the Golden Visa of Portugal. What is the Golden Visa? The Portuguese Golden Visa is a residence permit that has been created to attract investment into Portugal. So it's basically a visa by investment, and it allows you to freely enter into the Portuguese territory and the Schengen area without a visa. This is good for people who want to travel to Europe, and it's generally granted to a non-EU citizen. So it's very useful for people who need to access the Schengen states on a regular basis. It is valid for a period of 2 years, and it is now successively renewed for the further 2-year period. And this allows one to apply for a residency, a permanent residency, or a nationality after completing 5 years of having stayed with the Golden Visa. They can also continue renewing the visa if they do not want to apply for the nationality or the residency. And then people ask, okay, but the Golden Visa is something that a lot of the people all over the world are offering, a lot of countries all over the world are offering. Why Portugal? So obviously, this leads us to the question of what makes Portugal a much sought after destination. One is The Portugal is a vacation destination, like many of the other Caribbean countries that are offering the citizenship program, but has one of the advantages that it has got a very high level of tourist, or the level of the tourist that arrives into the country is of a quality, a person that appreciates good weather, appreciates the sandy beaches, the good food, and then is amazed by the fantastic prices. At the end of the day, it is far more affordable than many of the other European nations. Globally, Portugal is the third safest country in the world. I mean, this is, it's been in the last 4 years, it has been consistently in the top three countries. It has a very good political stability. The economic growth has shown excellent improvement in the last 3 years. This year, the whole of the world is reeling from the pandemic, but prior to that, it was on the ascent. It has got great infrastructure and services and a very high level of skilled workers, which makes it an attractive destination for people with business wanting to come in and settle here. It is also becoming the Silicon Valley of Europe. We've had Web Summit and Planeteers and many other events, world famous events that have been held here. Web Summit attracts almost 75,000 attendees every year. They have confirmed that Lisbon is going to become their event city for the next 10 years, which makes it also a place that many of the people from the IT world or the digital world seek as a destination for themselves. It has got fantastic incentives that they provide, especially for innovative businesses. Lisbon has been declared as the third most innovative city in the world currently, and is also the green capital of Europe. The mayor has made efforts in the last couple of years to plant 80,000 more trees in the city. This has reflected in a massive growth of verdant landscapes in the city. And also, as a country, Portugal has the oldest borders in Europe, over 800 years. It has got great wines. I mean, everybody in the world must have tasted port wine at some stage or the other, and it comes from the city of Porto, and there's nothing like it anywhere in the world. Fantastic olive oil, great people. At the end of the day, people make a country, and that's what it is. And here, people speak English, French, and Spanish too. So it makes it easy for a traveler to adapt into the country. It makes it easy for a person to settle in and find his feet and bearing, because you have people that can converse with them. Has a population of, the country is a very small country. It has a population of only 10.8 million, and a large part of the population is concentrated in the two cities of Lisbon and Porto. There are some of the awards that Portugal has won over the last few years. The best golf destination in Europe, and in the last few years has been picking up tourism Oscars, which make it really attractive for someone in the tourism industry. Last year itself, it picked up 39 tourism Oscars. I mean, that's by far. It was like how you have the Oscar Awards. Someone would pick up 9 Oscars, and equivalent of that in the World Travel Awards. It is becoming a safe investment place. Every year, the visitors' records that we break, it surpasses. The numbers surpass each year or on year. And at the last count, it was 23 million visitors for Portugal. That itself is a large number for a small country. What are the benefits of the Golden Visa? So I've spoken about Portugal. Now let's look at the benefits of this. It's basically, the Golden Visa is a free entry to Portugal and the Schengen countries. It gives you the right to live and work in Portugal. We will talk about all these in a little bit. And it gives you access to the Portuguese public services, including health and education. At present, as you can see on the map, the Schengen areas consist of the countries in dark blue. You have certain Schengen areas which are in light blue, which are not part of the EU, but are part of the Schengen. And then you've got the countries that don't form part of the Schengen area, and you won't be able to access these countries. Post Brexit, we have yet to see what happens with the UK. What are the eligible investments for a golden visa? There are 8 different types of investments that grant this visa. The primary one of them is acquisition of a real estate in Portugal for 500,000 euros. Now, this is generally for areas of high density, and it drops to 400,000 when you go into areas of low density. So pretty much an hour's drive from the cities of Porto and Lisbon, you should be already reaching these areas. There is another sector which is acquisition and refurbishment of real estate, which is older than 30 years, and this is 350,000 euros, which then automatically becomes 280 in the lower density areas. Difficult to come across such properties because by now many of the properties have already been snapped up and are not accessible to the market. Therefore, it still exists, but it is getting rarer and rarer. Then there's the capital transfer of 1 million to a Portuguese bank that's owned by the investor. The account is owned by the investor, and this is by far the easiest method. Of course, it's also 1 million, so the value is much higher. You've got the creation of at least 10 jobs in Portugal. That's another method that one can employ. There are some advantages if you have a company that you're setting up for a particular purpose or a business enterprise. However, if you're just creating it with the intent of getting a golden visa, it's not recommended. You have the other methods, that is donation of 350,000 to a scientific research institution, either private or public, and 250,000 to a local or national institution. These are also simple methods. However, this is sunk capital. You will not be able to get that capital back. You have also another method of capital transfer of 350,000 euros, which is destined to incorporate a company in Portugal. However, these has costs once you have invested this money, because there will be year-on-year costs for maintaining the company, including accounting and legal fees that you would have to pay. And finally, the acquisition of 350,000 worth of euros in or shares worth 350,000 euros in venture capital funds. These funds have to invest 60% of the fund into Portuguese companies, and have got certain restrictions, have to be registered with the IPVC. So and effectively they have they are becoming also another method of investing for the golden visa. Who is eligible to obtain a golden visa in Portugal? I mean, this is one of the questions people ask. Then they ask, am I eligible? I mean, even if you want to, yes, provided the person gets a non-resident tax number, and this has to be done through a tax representative. Having a tax representative here, then opens a bank account in Portugal to deposit the investment amount. But it's important to notice that to know that the person has no criminal conviction, which has when it is convicted for a period of more than 1 year, is not subject to an entry ban either in Portugal or in the European Union, and is not subject to alerts in the system too. So generally, most people are able to comply with all these requirements. Then the next thing is, if you were to invest, people say, okay, let me invest and see where we go with this. And we say, okay, you start the process, and then they ask how long, because this is a question that affects a lot of people currently with the pandemic. The first thing is making an investment and then applying for the golden visa. Once you've made a qualified investment that is in any one of those sectors that we have previously spoken about, or the methods that we have spoken about, the 8 methods, we apply for the golden visa, and then obtain. This period could be anywhere between 6 months, 9 months, given the current situation that everything has become online and if you're not able to go physically to the counters and apply, everything has to be applied by post. It's taking a bit longer. All communication has gone via email, so that also adds to the backlog. However, the processes are still being carried out, as I will show you in the next couple of slides. It gives you a resident permit for 2 years. There is a requirement. Once you get the golden visa, you have to stay for 7 days in the first period. These could be consecutive or concurrent. It doesn't need to neither concurrent nor consecutive. So you can, as long as you have complied 7 days stay, that's fine. And then you apply for renewal, which leads you to the next step, that is applying for a renewal, wherein then you have to stay for the second time for 14 days in the 2-year period, which I suppose is the very reason one applies for the golden visa, is to come and stay. So 14 days in 2 years is a very easy time period to achieve. And then you go in for the third renewal. Now, when you go in for the third renewal, you have a situation where you have already completed 5 years of having stayed in the country, which then gives you the ability to apply either for a permanent residency or for the Portuguese nationality. There are situations where people say, I don't want either of them, and they continue with the golden visa and they renew it for another 2-year period, as you can see over here. But every time you have a renewal, you have to stay for 14 days in that visa period. So coming to those statistics, as I was talking to you about, the pandemic has affected the fact that people are not able to visit the country or travel. However, people are investing now over the net. They're buying by having discussions, online, and the number of approvals have shot up again. In May itself, the last figures that were released were in May, and there was 147 million euros worth of investment that were made in the golden visa program of Portugal. As you can see here, year on year, you've got the slide at 2020 at the bottom over here, which says you've got the main applicants and the dependents. We will get to that, because a golden visa investment allows for the investor to apply for the golden visa as well as his family members. This is a question we will address in a couple of minutes. As on the last statistics that we had this year, the year is not yet over, but we have already had close to 2,000 and 2,500 golden visa issued in 2020. Since the program has started, as you can see in the figures, there's almost 22,000 golden visas that have been issued, which is a large number by any standards. I mean, you can see that it started in 2012 with only 2 resident permits, but as the numbers have kept climbing and climbing. On an average, you got 1,200 main applicants and about 2,000 dependents that are applying for the golden visa. This signifies that they're getting about 100 visas being issued every month, which is quite a large number. If you look at the type of investments, the investments that most people primarily make, in the past few years, it has been purely real estate investment. Over the last couple of years, there has been a growth in venture capital, and there is a slight growth also in the 350,000 sector, because it has opened up certain parts of the city have opened up to investments, where heritage buildings have come onto the market for people to invest into, allowing them to access the visa by the 350,000 category. So as you can notice in the last column over here on the right, you have the blue bar, which shows real estate, that is the 500,000 category, and then you've got the beige bar on top of it, which is the 350,000 category. There is a very small green line on top, which is the venture capital. And at the base, at the bottom, you've got capital transfer, which is the 1 million euro category. So that also is a sector that people are still investing in. As you can see, the number of houses in Portugal, the growth is still happening. People said, oh, no, there will be a crash. There will be a crash because the growth has been happening since 2014. It was slow, and then it kept growing and growing and growing and growing. And then they said, okay, there's going to be a crash. But no, it did not. The country has got an attractiveness to the investor that has allowed the real estate market to grow year on year. And it has reached a point where this year's projection is going to touch 190,000 despite the pandemic. This year's downside is that were there not to be a pandemic, we would have been able to, I think, cross the 200,000 barrier. So this is just to get to reach a point here where I'm going to pause my part of the presentation to bring in Philippe Eusebio. He will be able to answer a couple of the legal questions that we need to, that most people ask him when they apply for a golden visa. Welcome, Philippe.
So thank you, Daryl, and hello, everybody. Well, there are a number of questions that I'm normally asked when engaging into a golden visa process. We've put together a few. There are, of course, a lot of them that have been asked throughout the years, because every case is a case. We're dealing with a person's life, with a family life, so every particular case is dwelt individually, of course. So first and foremost, I guess, as a family process, this is, I guess, the first question that I'm asked is, will my investment allow my family to also benefit of this residence card? And the answer is yes, as long as we're dealing with the dependent family. The concept of dependency, when we're talking about your kids, it's really easy to ascertain. So according to our to all the processes we've submitted, regardless of your kids being of age already, over 18, it's no problem in terms of doing the regrouping, as long as they're still studying. So the standards is that as long as we can deliver to the authorities here any document proving that your kids are still studying, we're able to enroll them as in a family regrouping process and allowing them to get also the golden visa. The next question, of course, is, will my parents also be able to get the card? And the standard is also the same. So as long as we can demonstrate that your parents are dependent on you as the main investor, we can regroup them into the golden visa program. Then another question that I'm frequently asked, because we have very low interest in our banks over here, so many people are attracted into getting a loan in order to do the investment. So the government has not deprived golden visa investors from getting loans as long as you don't harm the minimum threshold of the investment. Let's say you want to buy a property in Lisbon, minimum a new property in Lisbon, minimum investment to be made is 500,000. So if the property is costs 700,000, you can ask for a 200,000 loan to the bank, but you must invest from your pocket the 500,000 that are the minimum threshold for that type of property to be golden visa eligible. Then on the taxation, because all the investment needs to be made through a Portuguese bank account opened by the investor, and there's a must that we must fulfill every time we open a bank account in Portugal, which is to have a tax ID, a Portuguese tax ID. So normally we're talking about persons that are not tax resident in Portugal, and they need to appoint a tax representative into Portugal in order to get a tax ID. This will be a non-resident tax ID normally, meaning that you have no obligations towards the Portuguese tax authorities other than declaring any income you may have in Portugal. So let's say you buy a property and you want to rent it out, that income generated in Portugal must be declared to the tax authorities yearly. And so this tax ID number is a registration towards the tax authority that may or not have implications according to whether you'll have or not income in Portuguese territory. Then another interesting question is whether the investment can can be sold along the 5 years of the Golden Visa. So when on day one, when you apply for the Golden Visa, you commit to a duty of maintaining your investment for 5 years. Let's say life changes, you don't want to continue in this in the Golden Visa procedure. You want to at some point in time along these 5 years to sell your investment. You can sell your investment, but the consequence will be that you will be obliged to declare that sale, and you will lose the Golden Visa card from that moment on. So that's something that must be kept in mind. This is normally a 5-year commitment on an investment, and I mean, the hand holding we've been doing for clients is to invest either in properties or companies or products that may on one side be considered safe, of course, on the other side that can target the 5-year the 5-year that the government imposes on you, with some safety and tranquility that investment will produce some yield and income, or at the end of the day will be a place for you to spend vacation. Sorry, got cut over there. Or for families to live in, or to establish themselves. We have had clients that have completely shifted their lives into Portugal according to the Golden Visa program, and came and lived to live here. So in a nutshell, those are basic questions we're asked normally when starting a Golden Visa process.
Thanks, Philippe. I think there's something wrong with your video. Maybe you may need to turn it on again,
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, Daryl, Philippe, thank you for doing this. Actually, we put together some questions for you from from our own side, because usually, Daryl, when our investors kind of buy a holiday home, obviously because they're investing in real estate, the downside is very protected, because the
Yeah.
property is usually making some income, and the property is usually bought very astutely, because most of our investors are entrepreneurs, experienced real estate investors, etc. However, buying an international property, the motivations go beyond just buying real estate. So they go also towards expanding their own entrepreneurial ambitions, and liking a new place, and things like that. So what we did is we put together a few questions ourselves, which I'd sent Daryl and Philippe earlier. We'll go through some of them, Daryl, and in the meanwhile, our viewers can also sort of put in their questions and comments on Facebook and YouTube, so that we will get those and we will answer them as best as possible. So Daryl, Philippe, I wanted to ask you, for a business person, who's saying that, okay, I'm buying a property in Portugal and I'd also like to use it as a stepping stone to doing business in Europe. What's the best place to be based, and what's the kind of lifestyle that he and his family can expect?
So let me share the screen with you. So
Yeah,
just
sure.
a second. I'm trying to get that presentation up so that you have the screen for this, so I can
Sure.
share it with you.
Yeah.
I think.
Would you like me to do that, Darren?
No, I have got it now. Yes. It's
Okay.
we are still learning this technology. Sorry. Okay.
Yeah.
And so I was. There you go. Okay.
Yeah. The next.
So
yeah.
if you were to look at, as in most people that come to Portugal, okay, and needs to travel to other parts of Europe, if they need to, for whatever reason, they choose Lisbon primarily, okay, because it's the capital of Portugal. Okay, it also is sort of the business center in terms of big company establishments. But you also have Porto and Faro that have international airports and international connectivity. So this allows also the two other places also to have their own attractiveness. So in terms of business, there are a lot of businesses now that are going to Porto because of a slightly lesser cost in the suburbs of Porto to set up. And Faro is more related to tourism, and such tourism-oriented businesses. You have international schools everywhere, so people can settle and have access to international schools where English is the medium of instructions. Now, one of the things that I always tell people about Portugal is that when you look at most of the European countries, I think barring one, all the countries, or at least the ones that I have gone to when I watch them, they're generally dubbed in the local language. So you're watching an English film, but with maybe Spanish or German, dialect being used in that. The language is. I mean, it does not convey the movie as it would be with an English subtitle. It makes a little bit. It's a bit strange. Whereas in Portugal, the English film is an English film, but it has Portuguese subtitles, so you actually get to see the films as it is. This has got two implications. One is that, of course, it becomes visitor friendly, but two is that the population, the Portuguese population, is getting access to English language as it is spoken and improving the level of English that is spoken in the country. This assists in people interacting with the Portuguese. There are also university cities, famous university cities that are, that exist in Portugal: Coimbra, Aveiro, Lisbon. But besides that, there are very good universities in other places too. And a lot of new international schools, as you can see, the schools I have, some of the schools I've put down are also set up here or are opening. United being the latest of them that has opened up.
Nice. Daryl, for
Yeah.
entrepreneurs, it's kind of prevalent in the industry to feel that Portugal is also the most cost-effective place within mainland Europe to set up. So and obviously human resources costs are of great importance to any business. So can you give us a sense of the human resources cost and what does staff cost and minimum wages in Portugal if you were to set up a business there?
Yes. Let me go to the next slide, which will explain this thing. So if you look at if you look at the general level of salaries that exist here, we have a minimum wage which is 635 euros per person. Okay, and that's the government is trying to raise it. By the next couple of years, the target is that they will reach 750. But on an average, that's still lower than many other places. We've been discussing with France, where it is above 1,000 per person. However, this does not mean that the person earns 635. As a salaried person, he would be earning a little bit more because of the holiday allowances, the add-ons that a person gets along with the salary. And on an average, it works out to on an average in the country, it works out to about 1,200 per person, and that's the average in this country.
Right. And when you say the average person, are you talking about somebody who works in a hotel as a receptionist, person who works in in an office as a secretary? What is average?
Yeah, I mean, when we say, the thing is that in Portugal, we are a socialist country, first of all, but the level of employees over here, in terms of the status of employees, blue collar is pretty much, I would say, they would not fall below the lower middle income group. So you would generally have that as a standard. Now, not to sound, to give it a comparison in the sense that, let's say if you were to look at Asia, in terms of the same level of people, you would be looking at the lower level of workers that would be office oriented job, but non-administrative jobs, more in the blue collar line, and they would be the kind of people that would be earning in this 1,000 bracket. The salaries would jump up all the way to 10 as the scale rises on an average. So that's
and Darryl, you had more than 30 years of experience in doing business in India as well as Portugal. What do you feel are the Indian or Asian companies that or industries that could do well? What's the opportunity like right now in Portugal?
I mean, there's opportunities in every part of the world. Let me tell you that, because having worked in various areas in various parts of the world, I have come across situations where people say, "Oh, in this area, it doesn't really work in this." But in every country, every sector has its own niche. If you generalize, yes, a tourism-oriented area like the south of Portugal would definitely be more inclined towards the hospitality sector and the F&B sector. But that does not mean that there would be no areas there would be no interest for other areas like IT and supplies of materials and goods and textiles to enter into this business, because at the end of the day, it takes a lot of industries and a lot of sectors to actually create an economy. And any place that has a certain economy is going to always attract businesses. Having said this, there are certain interests, there are certain industries that obviously have higher demand as compared to the others, and the F&B sector for sure, because obviously that's linked to the tourism industry. The textile industry also is a big draw, both from the Portuguese market and from the Indian market to Portugal. The Portuguese market also has a great potential for exploring leather goods, and that has been seen that this particular sector has been exporting both to the West as well as to Asia. So, North America and South America have a big demand for these products. Hospitality is a big draw, as you can see. Then there are certain other industries like transcription and back office operations, which can be linked up with the country's demand.
Right. That's thanks, Daryl. I think you have also some. I remember when discussing with you, you also had some prepared ideas on which sectors in Portugal are globally competitive.
Oh
So
yes, I can.
Yeah. Would already have an ecosystem around them. So I think that's also good to share with the viewers.
I think it's in the next. Yes, yeah, it's in this slide. Okay. So talking of the sectoral competitiveness, there's an error in the sector. We can look at various sectors, which is energy, tourism, digital, and real estate as the primary areas that we were talking of in terms of competition. Okay, energy is always a big demand industry. Portugal has also ventured into the non-conventional, the renewable energy sector. For example, I think this year we've already crossed 3 full working days having run only on wind energy. The whole country needs were met only by wind energy alone, but it is growing. The solar industry is growing tremendously, so that's a huge draw. Besides the traditional energy sources, which are refined petroleum products and its byproducts. Tourism is, without doubt, one of the biggest draws for places like Porto, Lisbon, and the Algarve. But that does not mean that is the only business. The digital world is now showing, the IT world is showing a large interest in Portugal, because Portugal is considered as the California of Europe for various reasons. One is this easygoing lifestyle. The Web Summit has moved itself here because of the location, the weather, and also we have got our gigantic waves of Nazare here, which is surfer's paradise. So I have seen a lot of people who love coming from California and hanging around the beaches, going surfing and working all seamlessly. The country has invested big time into the IT sector and into informatics. So obviously, it has opened up the industry and the place for businesses to venture into. And real estate, which is the traditional big draw for any investment. So Portugal has always featured on many of the
absolutely
well-renowned in architectural designs all over the world.
Incredible. Also, the number of Indian hoteliers and Indian real estate developers who've all gone and fallen in love with Portugal and then have started doing small developments and actually done very well.
There are lots of them. There are lots of Indian developers who have come here and have started. Some have been here for the last 15 years, have been established and have basically entrenched themselves into the system. But the connect between, especially between the India, East Africa, and Portugal has always been very strong. So you have a lot of influence, cross influences between these two in this area.
Absolutely. Daryl, I want
Yeah,
you to spend some time on real estate in particular because, as you know, 90% of people, choose to actually, I mean, all the savvy investors pretty
yeah,
much choose to, to get the golden visa through the real estate route. And there are some nuances to that, right? Because there's the city center, high density properties outside the city center, and then there's the older properties that you can basically acquire and then spend some money on the property. So I'd like it if you
okay.
can just kind of take us through those variations because at least for me and Lester and other people from the holiday home times, when
Yeah,
when
let
we
me just go
initially
to
valued
the
it, there were lots of numbers there.
yeah. Okay, let me go to this slide to explain a little bit about that. So
The
let me
next one,
yeah. So this is the one. Sorry,
yeah,
as I was going to that, um, talking about the real estate, you have the map of Portugal on the left. I'm not very sure that it's clear on the small screens, but as you can see, Lisbon is bang in the center on the west coast, on the western side. Faro is in the south, and Porto is in the north. So these are the three areas that you would consider first for comparison. As you can see, the price average value, which is the second value that is there, it's a value per square meter. It's 2,215 euros for Porto. You've got the value for Faro for the Algarve, which is 2,221, pretty close to Porto's value. And then you've got the high value of 3,634 for Lisbon. So it just goes to show that you've got almost a 35% jump in the value straight away between Porto and Lisbon, and obviously Faro. However, when you start going down to the interiors, Evra is one of the historical tourism destinations, and it is a fabulous place also to invest in. It falls in a low density area, and the average value here is half of that of Porto and Faro, and only a third of Lisbon at 1,243. So I mean, this goes to show you that there is a great potential for people to invest in any one of them, depending on what their requirement and their investment level is. Then you have got the farm properties. I mean, that's a sector for a long time that was neglected or not looked upon.
Because as you mentioned, Daryl, I want you to touch on that a little bit.
Yeah.
A few comments before you speak about that.
Okay.
See, Portugal, and obviously, with well-heeled investors across the globe, Portugal has developed this reputation of being an artisanal place, where people
Yes.
can work with their hands and has got fresh agricultural produce, the best olive oil and wines, and a lot of agri-linked products. And
Yeah.
for a lot of investors, when they think about moving to Portugal, there's a strong desire to say that, hey, can I, instead of buying an apartment which is in a historic place and must be beautiful, but can I buy a larger property where I can do some of this stuff, etc. And the Portuguese government has also been, as per our reports, been encouraging that. So I want you to maybe share and paint a little bit of this picture, because I think this is something that a lot of people want to do, or there's a very strong connect with this kind of opportunity in Asia.
Sorry, I think I lost the last part of your. I
No,
heard
there's a very
Asia.
strong connect from the investor side, because they want a slightly more larger property, want land,
Yes,
want a
yes.
small
Okay, I got
farm.
it. Okay, it was. I thought I had lost a sentence, but it's not just two
Yeah,
words. Okay.
yeah.
Coming back. Okay, so talking about that, why don't I talk about farm to explain that a little bit? We talk about farms. I've got this living on a farm or vineyard in Portugal because people look at larger properties precisely because of the fact that they want to get value for money, for one. But now with the pandemic, you've seen a lot of people moving out of the city and wanting the open life, because the 6 months of confinement have shown them that getting stuck in a house and not being able to move out of an apartment, being confined basically to the seclusion of your house, has been quite a difficult time. And working from home is all great, but if you can't get out into the open, it makes a big difference into the quality of life that you have got, which is pushing people to the open areas or to the interiors of Portugal. This having said, there are a lot of small farms, there are a lot of vineyards, there are a lot of agricultural properties and houses that exist. It's great for that. The problem is that you have, how do you say, is that most people say, oh, but then how do I maintain it? How do I manage it? And this is where I think with trip villas, it becomes easy. The system of management is taken care of, and it makes it easier for these kind of properties to be brought into agri or ecotourism.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the potential, and as I said, it already plays to the positive prejudice, where people already
Absolutely.
feel that it's a great place for artisanal products. I'll take some questions, Daryl,
Yes.
that have come in from the viewers. So the first question is, we touched about public school, private schools, and international schools. What about public schools? Are they free? Are they accessible for Golden Visa holders? How does that work?
So yes, there is a Golden Visa holder effectively becomes how do you say? He becomes a resident for all practical purposes. Okay, and gets access to the health and the educational system just like any other Portuguese citizen would be.
Got it.
So, which means that if he was to go to the public school, he would be paying the same fees, or which is very low, and basic education is free. But once you go into university, you would be paying for the courses as you choose. However, every person has an option or a choice to choose the course or university that he wishes to. If he has got the affordability, he can also go and study in any university. The level of education. So people will ask me, so what is the education level of the public school? I think that's the next question that gets automatically linked to it. The level of education is very high. Portugal invested big time in the late 70s to raise the illiteracy level. There was a high illiteracy rate because of the high agricultural population. Okay, and therefore they invested big time into universities and made sure that everybody would end up with a degree. Okay,
right.
So today we have got close to 97% of the people of the population that has a degree of some sort or education of that level, which allows them to be one of the most well-educated populations in the world.
Yeah. Daryl, thank you for that. I also have two other questions which I think are very commonly asked by investors, obviously. The first one is that, can you only buy residential, or can you buy residential, commercial, restaurants, retail space, and then rent it out?
I
What
think
is
Philip would
eligible
be
for?
great to answer this because Philip comes across these kind of questions every
Yeah,
day.
Yeah,
yeah,
no. So there's no constraints in what sort of a property you can buy, as long as it's property you can buy it and be eligible for the Golden Visa. So we've been effectively having clients that bought farmlands to stores, apartments, and actually some co-investments as well from several investors. You can do that as well. So let's say you have two more friends and you want to raise the bar from 500,000 to 1.5 million. You can
right,
co-invest into a property of 1.5 million, whatever
right.
sort of property, and raise a little bit the investment and get to other opportunities that are out there in the market, of course. Yeah.
Right. So essentially, Philippe, that means that, let's say, for instance, a bunch of 3, 4 investors could get together and buy a small boutique bed and breakfast, for instance, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And for the agricultural properties, could they buy a farm and, let's say, build a bigger house, and then that would come to 2 million euros, and then
The
share four of them?
As long as the farm, if it is in a low density, reaches the 400,000, or if it is in high density, reaches the 500,000, yes, the purchase of the property itself. What you cannot add on that is the price of the construction. Okay.
Okay.
Otherwise, you can add a price of a refurbishment. So let's say you buy a farm already with a house inside of that. You can refurbish that property as long as it is over 30 years old or is in a refurbishment.
Philippe, we've also designed a program where Trip Villas and RERA are kind of doing custom build out where we will build out the property on the agricultural
Mhm.
farm by the investors, and then they can buy it from the Portuguese entity and still qualify.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. The other question, Daryl, for you is, for average investments, so not the investments where they have to work very hard, like a BNB or, something which is more high yield. For a regular apartment or a regular commercial property, what kind of yields can you guide people to expect?
So in Lisbon area, for example, I mean, if you look at the city and the urban area, so Lisbon and Porto, okay, or Faro, you generally get a 4% yield. This is the average, so you can get up to 8% depending on exclusive properties. But then obviously your investment is also higher because you're looking at exclusive properties. But
Right.
I would go by the average that exists. Existing averages are 4% on an average, based on the fact that people have to invest 500,000 to invest into a property.
Yeah. In the
Okay,
in
so
this in
that's
downtown Lisbon.
yeah. So we look at effectively the bracket of 500,000, and then we assess based on 500,000 investment what would be the yield the person gets. And therefore, if you go by that standard, then the person gets on an average 4% here. The moment you go out into the low density areas like the farmlands, which are 1.5 hour away from Lisbon, this value drops obviously because the investment level also is lower. Number one, but the value drops to 3% on an average in those areas. Like, so let's say you look at Evora as a city, barring the historical city center, which is the old town, which is a small downtown area of Evora, okay, around the castle. The rest of it would be on an average 3%. The historic Roman temple zone. I mean,
Right.
I'm not sure whether many people know this, but one of the ancient Roman temple ruins are right in the heart of Evora city, and that area would still qualify for the 4%.
Right.
So
Uh,
on an average, 4% to 3% is the yields between
right.
places.
Right. Daryl, wanted to touch a little bit on agriculture and horticulture. We've got this question from one of our viewers.
Yes.
Is agriculture per se a good business, or is it doing agriculture and then processing it into products? What does Portugal exactly do in the agriculture horticulture space?
So it's always like this. In most parts of the world and Portugal too, agriculture is a great investment. Beyond doubt, because food production is something that is always in demand. Our population is growing faster than we can keep up with the food production that we have in existence. So agriculture is now turning more tech, and therefore you're going to see more greenhouse farming systems, like hydroponics and aquaponics coming into the systems. You're going
Yeah.
to get vertical systems too if there is going to be land shortage, but which we don't have in Portugal. However, farm produce offhand, just picking up from the farm to fork, is a very small market. It hasn't grown as yet, okay, because distances in Portugal are large. The reason being that we have a population of 10.8 million for the whole country. Now, if it were to be somewhere, say in India, okay, and you were talking of that kind of a situation in Bombay, it would work fantastically for farm to fork because the density of population is much higher. So
Right.
here, post cultivation processing is very important, and facilities exist. Cold storage facilities exist. So warehousing facilities exist. So people can actually stock their produce for months before it goes to market.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot of like if I look at some of our holiday home owners who moved to Portugal, they've done lots of agri-linked stuff like canning and pickling, and then producing soaps and cosmetics and lots of agri-linked processed
Yes.
products. Yeah.
I mean,
Uh, yeah.
sorry.
That
Here, a
just
simple example is olive
yeah.
oil. If you've got a few olive trees in your garden, or some some wines, grape
Yeah.
wines, you're not able
Yeah.
to really produce oil or produce wines. But what you do is you join one of the cooperatives, send your produce to them. It gets all canned or processed jointly or bottled jointly, and then you get your fair share of the produce back in the form of bottles or cans.
Right. Right. This is what they call the fair trade certified products. Yeah.
And cooperative system which exists
Right.
in Portugal. Yeah.
Right. Daryl, a little bit on COVID. We've seen this across the globe that all the big downtown cities, the prices have fallen a little bit because people want more space, so they're moving to the suburbs. Has that sort of impacted prices in downtown Lisbon or Porto?
Actually, surprisingly, not. We were surprised. We were hoping that in September, when the confinements really started easing up, and that
Yeah,
prices would cool down a little bit. But surprisingly, the prices have been consistently growing. It has grown on an average at 2.8%, which is what we had seen last. It
right,
always flattens out in October, November, and then again peaks up in December. And which has flattened. It has not dropped.
right,
So it's still growing. What has
right,
grown even more is the demand for agricultural and farm products.
right. Of course, yeah. That's a pretty much a universal global phenomenon we have seen.
That's happening everywhere. That's happening all
Yeah,
over the place.
yeah.
We're seeing it all over.
The demand for agricultural properties, the demand for holiday
Yeah,
homes
or
and
rustic,
villas
exactly.
is
Rustic
growing
properties.
everywhere. Philip, a final question because we would like to end at the 1 hour mark. What are there's been some news of the Portuguese government making some changes in the policies around the Golden Visa and things like that. What's your expectation on what's happening and what's likely to happen over the next 12 months, 24 months?
Well, the question is very good, and we are all wondering whether the government will use or not an authorization it received from the Parliament in the beginning of 2020. So, in this authorization, the government was authorized by the Parliament to change the Golden Visa law in terms of prohibiting golden visa from real estate investment in Lisbon and Porto. The fear was that the market was too hot, and that this would disincentivize locals to still live in these big cities. Then COVID happened, so we are all living another reality, and all the expectation that the government had back in January are no longer applicable at this stage. So there has been some news lately in September that that initiative would happen. We Even if it happens still this year, last time the Golden Visa law changed, it took them 6 months to make it as a reality, to enter into force. So it was this delay. I'm anticipating that even if they publish it before mid of next year, nothing will happen. So let's keep working on what we have, because
Right.
circumstances have changed drastically, of course. Yeah.
Absolutely. In fact, Philippe, I think we have been guiding our advisory team has been guiding most of the investors that, that pretty much, what is certain is the next, until mid of next year, 2021.
Hmm.
And, it's a global wave where there's, where every country is kind of seen that, there's so much of demand for these kind of citizenship or residency by
Yeah.
investment products that everyone said that, okay, let's just raise the bar because these people seem to have a lot of money. So,
Yeah.
but our guidance to our clients has been that, hey, you have to plan that, you have until the first quarter of 2021 and try
Hmm.
and, plan your finances and
Yeah.
your move accordingly.
Yeah. And actually, for Portugal, remember that we have now from the 1st of January all the UK citizens as Golden Visa potential clients. So we've been allies of the UK for centuries, and we
Right.
have a huge tradition of having UK residents into our country. So losing that market because of a precipitate change of the law would be a nonsense, according to us. So I think the government will share the same idea for sure. Yeah.
Right. Well, thank you, Daryl and Philip, for your time and for
You're
sharing your
welcome.
knowledge and
Thank you
experience
too.
with,
Thank
uh,
you.
with our viewers from across the globe. Those of them who have questions can, of course, write to us, and then we'll put them in touch with you, Daryl and Philip, to kind of guide them on more specific questions. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Daryl and Philip, for your time. And with that, we'll leave everyone with a small video on the holiday home times.